What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the final season of Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous. Camp Cretaceous has come to an end with 5 seasons. The final season just came out on Netflix this past week, and I checked it out. Finally coming to the end of the story of the young campers who came to Camp Cretaceous during the events of Jurassic World and are now leaving the island finally at the end of the series. What did I think about it? Let's get into it. So for anybody who's new here to the channel, first of all, my name is Anthony A. Perez, and if you guys have not checked out my channel before, I cover all things movies, TV, I do vlogs, I do supercut videos, and tons of other fun stuff here on the channel. So I definitely want to welcome anybody who's new here to the channel to hit that subscribe button and join the family here as we talk about movies in the comments, TV, and all that fun stuff. And if you're a regular, welcome back. Thank you so much for clicking on my silly face once again. This time around, we're going to be talking about the final season of Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous. Now, if you have seen my reviews for the series up to this point, you know that I try to avoid spoilers for the most part, but you know, if you're watching a review for the 5th season and the final season of a television show, chances are you've been watching it or you're at least interested in watching it. So I am still going to kind of speak as if you've seen at least the final season before this. So if you are a fan of the series, but you haven't gotten around to the new season yet, don't worry. I won't be dropping specific spoilers for the series here, but I will be kind of talking as if you've seen what's come up to this point. For anybody who's not familiar with what Camp Cretaceous is, and maybe this is the first video you're watching of what this is all about, it is an animated show that takes place during the events of the first Jurassic World film, or at least that's where the first season picks up, and we are following a group of kids that are kind of like the beta testers. They won a contest in a way to be a part of this thing called Camp Cretaceous that was going to be a summer camp on the island where Jurassic World takes place. Except during the events of the first season of Camp Cretaceous, outside of the different struggles that these kids have to deal with on their own, the events of the first Jurassic World film are happening at the same time. So it's pretty cool when you can see certain events from Jurassic World from a different angle being seen by different characters, or at times certain characters from this show interacting with characters from the Jurassic World movies or the Jurassic Park movies. Without a doubt, that's been my favorite part about this show, is the interconnectivity to the Jurassic World movies and how there are certain things that, if you know the movies well, you can notice are going on in the background or are being said in the background while our characters are dealing with their own situation. So it is nice to kind of see the series and the movies move alongside one another. With that said, if you've seen my reviews for the Jurassic Park franchise overall, you know that it is one of my favorite franchises of all time. Quick recap, the original film is one of my favorite films of all time, and for me is one of the best made films of all time. The sequel, The Lost World, is a nostalgic watch for me that I've always thoroughly enjoyed, but without a doubt is not my favorite Jurassic Park film. It's definitely lower on the totem pole for me, or at least it always was when it was just the original 3, because I loved the 3rd film. I've always loved the 3rd film. I think it gets way more crap than it deserves. But I've always loved those first 3 Jurassic Park films. They were some of my most nostalgic films growing up as a kid, movies that I watched endlessly as a kid. And when Jurassic World came out, I was thrilled, and I love that movie still to this day. I think it takes what Jurassic Park was, does something different, brings the action up, makes it fun, exciting, and I thought that it honored the legacy of the films before it in a really strong way. Then we got Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, and there's so much I like about that movie. Honestly, I like a lot about the visuals and the action, the look, the feel, the vibe of the film. But in terms of a lot of the logic and the character discussions, the dialogue, and the story overall, it's a bit of a forgettable, messy movie in the full chronology of the Jurassic World movies. And then we got recently Jurassic World Dominion. And if you saw my review for that, you know that I found that story to be messy and hollow in a lot of ways, while also just being something that didn't fully give me the finale I wanted from the Jurassic Park series. However, I did say, though, that because of my absolute love for dinosaurs and the Jurassic Park franchise and the returning characters and actors that were in Jurassic World Dominion, I still found myself enjoying a lot about that film. All that to say, going into Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous, I was always really interested to see what this show was going to be all about because I love this universe. And from the very beginning, what I loved about Jurassic World Cretaceous was the fact that each season did honor the legacy of the franchise. We would revisit different locations from various movies. Characters would appear in here, and it never felt shoehorned. It felt like something that was trying to, be nostalgic, but also honor the legacy. I think, honestly, and I'm going to make this my hot take about Jurassic World, that Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous, the 5 seasons that exist, is a better overall Jurassic World story than the Jurassic World movies. Now, for some of you, that might not be a very hard feat to accomplish, but I'm happy to say, honestly, that for me, this show really captured everything that I love about Jurassic Park. Now, for anybody who's not familiar with Camp Cretaceous, it's a DreamWorks animated show that is on Netflix. Now, if you've seen other DreamWorks animated shows, you can probably figure out what the 3D animation looks like. The budget isn't super high all the time, so especially in the first season, you can tell they didn't really know where they was going to go yet, so the animation wasn't as crisp as it is in the final season of the show. But, think How I Trained Your Dragon or something, or How to Train a Dragon, stuff like that in terms of the character models. Very similar cartoony look, feel, and vibe. And I know that that's been a huge turnoff for a lot of people, on top of the fact that this does focus on a bunch of kids and teenagers. So a lot of the dialogue and the look and feel of the show very much leans into a lot more hip culture in terms of, certain things that they would say or do, or the certain things that they're into. There's definitely a teeny bop feel and vibe to elements of this show. But beyond that element, if you can look past the part of this being something that's made a lot of ways for a younger audience, I think that this show does an incredible job of honestly honoring the legacy of the original films of Jurassic Park, as well as the Jurassic World movies that we've been getting, and fleshing them out. I won't get too deep into everything, but we do have characters that appear here in this final season that are in the latest installment of the Jurassic World movies, giving us a lot more context to kind of what we see leading up into the events of Jurassic World Dominion. So I will say what I enjoyed about this was it tells its own story. It focuses on these kids that get, lost on the island and have to deal with surviving amongst all the dinosaurs on their own for the course of 5 seasons. Sure, that's what this movie is all about, or the show is all about. But at the same time, it does such a great job of connecting and expanding upon story ideas from the movies, giving a little bit more fleshing out and kind of, for me, bettering the movies in certain ways. Overall, I really enjoyed this season. If you've seen the previous season, you know that the season ended with Kenji, one of our main characters, his father reappearing to him for the first time after he was thought to be lost and dead. Kenji is who I'm referring to. And so he sees his father for the first time on the island right before they think they're in some deep shit. And now this season is really all about Kenji figuring out if he can trust his dad or not, while him and the rest of the kids are trying to find a way to save the dinosaurs from some things that this corporation that his dad works for, and also trying to find an escape from the island. I will say overall, as far as my thoughts on the show wrapping up, I'm sad to see it go. I really thoroughly enjoyed this show. I could have at least done one more season of this show. And I say that specifically because I felt like the last 10 minutes, though it was nice to see, there is a bit of a time jump when we see where our characters have kind of gone, and a little bit of a time from the ending of the show to, the very end, and kind of getting to see where they are and kind of how they've grown up. I thought that was really cool. But what I will say is I felt like the last 10 or 15 minutes felt a little bit rushed to end the show. I liked what we got in those last 10 or 15 minutes, but I could have done for one more season, because the show this season overall focuses so much on trying to protect the dinosaurs from this corporation that the last episode kind of feels like, okay, we've done it, let's get out of here kind of thing. And so I did like the last 10 or 15 minutes of the final episode, but I did find myself at times feeling like, okay, I just wish that this would have maybe played out a little bit more. Overall, I found the ending to be a good, satisfactory ending. And overall, I just was happy with how this show wrapped up. As you can tell, this is more of a review of the latest season, but also my wrap-up thoughts on the show overall, because I am sad to see it go. I think they left it in a place where they could do another season, but honestly, there's really no reason for them to do it based on the way that they ended it. I found it to be a good time. Honestly, I had an up and down kind of experience with this show at times. There is lacking logic at times. The fact that this is for a younger audience at times does remove stakes, because you know that our main kids are going to be okay in most of these situations, no matter how tense, dangerous, or big and over the top those moments are. You also have tons of little elements in there that are very convenient, again, because this is something that's written for a younger audience. But what I will say is that there are some really dark themes and elements that are introduced here, and I would say that this show, more so than the movies, really captures the essence of really leaning into the idea of humans trying to control and exploit nature and the things of nature and trying to take that and make a dollar off of it. This show definitely tackles that idea and also really does a great job of balancing the action and the killer dinosaur element, but also recognizing that these are creatures that deserve to live free and not be controlled and deserve to, be respected. And even though they might be, big killing machines when they're in front of you, the reality of the situation is a lot of these creatures are still, families. They have siblings, they have mothers, and they're not mindless creatures. They're these creatures that love one another and have community. But of course, they're predators, so they're going to eat you. And so I like that this show does a really great job of balancing the action, the big over-the-top killer dinosaur element of it, but also really balancing the element of what I think the original film did really well, which is respecting nature and recognizing that not everything in nature can and should be controlled. And, life finds a way. And I like that about the kids in the show, specifically our lead character, Darius, in the show. From the very beginning, he was the biggest dinosaur fan and the one who knew the most and has respected these creatures the most. And even after 5 seasons of being chased down by some of the most deadly creatures in the world, he still has nothing but respect for these creatures and wants nothing for them but to live free. And I think that this show captures that. All the movies always try to do that, but certain movies sometimes lean way too much into them being death monsters that at the very end, they'll always be like, wow, dinosaurs, beautiful thing of nature, even though we spent the whole movie villainizing them and making them monsters. And what I like about this show is that it has a good balance of being afraid of these dinosaurs when they're chasing us, but if we have a chance to save the same dinosaur that was trying to kill us because we don't want that dinosaur to die or to be in captivity, then we're going to do that. And I think that this show did a great job of really balancing that respect and love and kind of cherishing nature while also not trying to control and exploit it. And these kids do a great job in the show. These characters are really great characters in terms of fleshing that idea out. And one of the things we've seen in the latest Jurassic World films is the connection between dinosaur and man, specifically with Chris Pratt's character Owen Grady and Blue, the velociraptor. And what I really enjoy about this show is that we have actually a few dinosaurs that our main characters would connect with over the course of the film. The most notable over the show being the character Bumpy, which I believe is an Ankylosaurus, I believe is how you say what the species is. So yeah, Bumpy and this kid Ben, that's part of the group, they build this great bond over the course of the show, almost like a pet for him. And, Bumpy would end up growing to a full-size Ankylosaurus by the end of the show. And their relationship, their bond, honestly, for me, was better done than what they did with things like Owen Grady and Blue in the movies. I think that this show ultimately, despite being goofy, despite having some logic gaps, despite losing some stakes because it's a kid's show, despite, being a little silly at times and not always being the best written thing, I think overall has captured the essence of what Jurassic Park is all about a lot more. The idea of nature should not be controlled or exploited. Nature should be free. And that even though we created these creatures and they are predators and will tear you limb from limb, they still are not mindless monsters, and we should allow them to live freely without the interaction or the interference of man. And I think that this show has captured that spirit way stronger than the Jurassic World films. So all this to say, I've really enjoyed Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous. It was a really great show. I had a lot of fun watching it. I'm sad to see it go, and I really look forward to maybe a 6th season, but if they end it here, because I know this is what they called the final season, I feel like it does wrap things up. It does a really great job of connecting to not only the original Jurassic Park films, but also the new Jurassic World films, and tying things in and expanding on certain story details that honestly for me fleshed out things that the movies didn't fully flesh out. And with the show having executive producers like Steven Spielberg or Colin Trevorrow, I think overall you can tell there was an attention to detail to use this show to not only tell a fun story that, young kids are going to be able to enjoy, but something that longtime Jurassic Park fans are also going to be able to get something from. And despite some of the silliness, as somebody who still likes a lot of kids' movies and shows, I found myself emotional a lot of times here. When you hear that Jurassic Park music being reprised here, it just gets you in the spirit of it. It gives you those chills. And overall, I feel like this show has just captured the themes of what Jurassic Park is all about. So that's going to be my thoughts on Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous, Season 5, the final season, but overall, just my thoughts on the show. And I definitely want to hear what you guys have to say. Are you watching this show? Have you not watched this show? Did you maybe start it and you stopped it? Whatever the case may be, leave any and all those comments down below. Let me know what you guys thought about this show, and I definitely want to hear what you guys have to say. All right, bye-bye.